Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Bobby and we are back and we're talking about what could be the most beautiful computer on the market. Not without its faults, but the computer that says to me, specs aren't everything. Here's our review of the Microsoft Surface Studio 2. Before we get into things, I do want to let you know that we are not paid by Microsoft anywhere to do a review on this. They passed me this to use for about a month. I've been using it for the past few weeks. These are my thoughts and my thoughts only. So if you like it or dislike it, it's all on me, okay? Before we begin though, let's go over some specs on the Surface Studio 2. It's been out for a few months, you probably already know them. I'm just gonna go over some of the specs real quick for you. First off, this is a 28-inch Pixel Sense display, 4500 by 3000, 192 ppi for you pixel peepers out there. Inside of this bad boy, we get the i7 processor on it, and this is the 7820HQ processor. So it's a little bit dated in terms of its lineage out there. It's a more mature i7 processor. 1 terabyte of storage, 32 gigabytes of RAM on this. You got the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1070 card in it, 8 gigabytes of GDDR5 RAM in this. You've got one USB-C port, you've got 4 USB 3.0 ports, you've got a full-size SD card reader in the back of it, 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, 1 gigabit Ethernet port, haven't seen those in a while. You've got stereo 2.1 speakers with Dolby Audio Premium in this, 5 megapixel front-facing camera, and yeah, Windows 10 Pro, of course. This is the Pro, this is the big boy, this is the daddy of all the Microsoft computers. Those are the specs of the Surface Studio 2. But now let's talk about the design. And I'm gonna go on a limb and say this. This is probably the most beautiful PC on the market. And I mean, when I mean PC, I mean personal computer, not just Windows, but also Apple, right? This is really that beautiful. It's something that I recommend you see it in person because pictures will not do it justice. How everything is just such tightly fit. I mean, the hinge on it is beautiful. The display is stunning. The way that it moves up and down to be the perfect angle for like a drawing table or if you're doing architecture, design. It's beautiful. I bet within the next few years, we are going to see a lot of other manufacturers come out with something similar to this, and rightfully so. They have knocked it out of the park. I mean, even the hinge, I'm starting to go on about this because it's that good. The hinge, no matter what position I go to, it stays. It doesn't fall. The tension is perfect. The base, solid. It's got this little vent right here for the air to come out because there's a lot of processing power that's into this thing, right? It's just beautiful. Then we talk about the display. Now, there are better displays on the market, I'm gonna be honest with you. But this is so beautiful to look at that I'm more than happy with this thing. Yeah, it's got a bit of a bezel on this. I mean, you know, maybe in the Surface Studio 3, Microsoft will get rid of the bezel. They seem to like their bezels a little bit more than other companies out there. You know, is it color accurate? You know, I mean, you have 3 different modes, obviously. You have vivid, which is for those highly saturated images out there that some people like. I don't personally like that. sRGB, which is where I like to stay in because I like to edit photos. Then you have DCI P3 if you're into editing videos. They're not going to win any awards for audio. It plays okay, but I mean, you can't expect to have audiophile speakers in this thing, but it does the job. Then we move on to the keyboard. Now the keyboard really complements the Surface Studio 2 roll-up well. It's a full-size keyboard, you got your number pad here. I like the travel that I get on the keyboard, no issues at all with that. However, when we get to the mouse, not that great. I mean, this isn't Microsoft's best. There's other mouses out there that are much better. I would recommend those, but out of the box, it does the job. Then you've got the pen. This is the same pen that you can buy for the Surface Pro, the Surface Book 2. Same pen, has a magnetic latch right on the side of it. Doesn't charge the pen, there's a battery inside of it, but it holds it pretty secure and it works well. Then you got the Surface Dial. Now this is a product that some people will like, some people won't like. It's not something that I use every day, but it's just more of an extension of the mouse, or if you're doing art and you want to change colors and you change your palette or change your pens when you're drawing, you can do that with the Surface Dial. And you can scroll through web pages like I'm doing right here. I mean, you don't need to have this. It's nice to have, it's a bonus, but it's not necessary. Then of course, these are the Surface headphones, which sound fantastic. They don't sell in Singapore. I don't know why Microsoft Singapore, you don't do it, but that's another video for another day. But anyway, let's get down to usage for this. Now, as I mentioned before, this is the i7 processor, 32 gigabytes of RAM, 1 terabyte of storage in this. I mean, now this is the top of the line for Microsoft with the Surface Studio 2. Out there in the PC world, it's, I wouldn't say it's pro level anymore. I would say it's prosumer level. But this is priced at the pro level. So let's talk about day-to-day performance for me. Like as I mentioned before, I do web browsing, all that fun stuff, handles it with ease. For me, photo editing is a big factor in what I do because I test a lot of cameras here at Tech 360. I'm editing a lot of photos, putting them up on social media and therefore. But I found that sometimes when using other computers out there or laptops, Photoshop, Lightroom Classic, you need something powerful to handle them nowadays. I can tell you, even though that the specs are a little bit dated on this, it handles these programs with ease. I'm going to show you Lightroom Classic real quick on this. It boots up relatively quick. Could it be faster, of course, but you know, I'm not a speed editor. Wait a few seconds, it comes up. I've got about 3,000 images in my catalog here that are tied to the 1 terabyte hard drive, so we're good to go on that. It's pretty responsive for the most part, much better than the Surface Book 2. So if you're wanting to compare between those two products, we'll put a link in the description below. This is much more responsive. So that could be updates from Adobe, could be of course the power that's inside of this with 32 gigabytes of RAM and the i7. It's much easier to use. I really have no issues with this at all. And the fact that I can actually pull out the pen when I need it and get into some more intricate edits, it just makes it a lot better. And I'll actually show you that real quick here. The one thing you're gonna notice with this is that your icons are small. Lighten up some areas. You can see the pen is very precise, works well. No real delay at all on this. It's actually a joy to use. And I love this aspect. This is the thing about the Surface Studio 2 that makes it really nice to use is that, and it separates you from all the other products out there, for me, is I have this. So this is like my personal canvas. So if I want to bring this out more, and I want to say, okay, I want to, burn this here, all that stuff, it works beautiful. Let's say that you want to get into gaming. Well, by the specs of it, it will game. I mean, it's not like it won't game, but you're not going to obviously get the highest resolution or the highest frame rate you're going to get on other products. And you have to also look at this as the design. You see this base? This is where everything is at. While this is a decent sized base, you're not going to get the kind of power output that you would need for a gaming rig, okay? So you need to be realistic for that. You need to say to yourself, yes, if I game casually, great. If I'm a full-time gamer, this might not be the product for you. What about video editing? It handles 4K decent. It's pretty good with 4K, to be honest with you. Again, i9, better graphics card will obviously perform a lot better. So at this point, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, there's no issues with it at all. It's good enough for you. You're happy with it. Why are you doing this review? And I do like it. It's a very enjoyable product to use, but I do have some issues with it some things that stood out to me after using it for a few weeks that became a bit frustrating. First off, it's something you can see right here, is the back of it. Where are the ports to the Surface Studio 2? At the back. I don't use the back of my PCs, especially if it's against a wall, where it's like that at my home office. I have my wall here, it's this way. So when I want to plug, maybe an SD card reader inside of it, or maybe a printer, or a camera, I now have to come all the way in the back and finagle a way to get back here to plug it in. I don't know why Microsoft couldn't have just put ports here on the side. And I can understand why not in the front, because if you pull this down, cables, blockage, everything else. But why not on the side here? You could put more ports, have more access to products on your left and products on your right. Second qualm, no Thunderbolt 3. Now I know this is a licensing issue. I was reading about online that Microsoft doesn't want to pay for the licensing, whatever the case is, I don't know. Anyway, this is a pro computer. Thunderbolt 3 should be a norm by now on a product being sold in 2018, 2019. At least one port. Doesn't have to be two, but at least one. And here's the thing, you can't argue saying, oh, you don't need Thunderbolt 3, it's not that much faster. It's a lot faster. I put a Thunderbolt 3 SSD under this. I'm editing 4K video right off that hard drive like no issue at all. But now I'm at USB 3.0. My speeds aren't as fast. Still decent, but not for a pro setup like this. Not in a computer that costs almost 7,000 Singapore dollars. Microsoft, Surface Studio 3, pay the licensing. Thunderbolt 3, a lot of people would really appreciate it. Besides that, it had me thinking a lot about what we do here as tech reviewers and everything else. We're always talking about specs and the latest and greatest, i9 and the new NVIDIA graphics cards and all these things that we should have in our computers, right? And while I agree with that, I never found myself wanting more power in this for the work that I do. If you are a hardcore user that needs an i9, that needs the latest graphics card, you're a hardcore gamer, don't look at this. Don't try to fit a square peg in a round hole. You kind of need to know who you are as a user and then find the product that fits you. This fits me, it might not fit you. Having said that though, I do feel if Microsoft is able to do with the engineering in the base of this, that they should offer a configuration with a more current chipset for those who are willing to pay for it. That brings us to price. Almost $7,000 for this configuration. That's a lot of money for a product with a year-plus-old i7 processor and not the latest graphics card. Why are we spending so much? Design, definitely. But also one thing that a lot of other PCs don't have, a 28-inch touch screen display at this resolution. That is what makes the Surface Studio 2 very, very special on the market. If you were to get a Wacom screen to draw on, large size, you're spending a couple of grand on that. You can have it all in one with this. Now, sure, it's almost 7,000 Singapore dollars, but it's one less thing you have to have on your desk. And is it as precise as the Wacom? Maybe not, but it's good for a lot of people. I've seen artists create beautiful works of wonder with this thing. So it can handle the job. But that's why you pay the price for the Surface Studio 2. Anyway, one more thing that I'm not a fan of, and it's nothing to do with the hardware, nothing to do with anything here on the desk. It's the fact that Microsoft doesn't promote this product really. And when I talk to them about it, I'm like, why don't more people know about the Surface Studio 2? I mean, it's on the website, you can see it of course, but in a lot of shops, at least here in Singapore, I don't know in the country, wherever you're at, if they show it there. And I think in the US they do it at the Microsoft stores, but you don't really see them out there. And I think that the more people that would see the Surface Studio 2 would see the engineering and what Microsoft's doing is the more people that would actually bring them into this world and say, hey, wait a second, there's an option for us out there. I would appreciate it if Microsoft actually gave the consumers this option instead of saying, hey, wait a second, this is for business or for artists only or graphic designers, it's not meant for the consumer. Let the consumer decide, Microsoft. You've got an amazing product for the most part here. I mean, no product is perfect. But this ticks a lot of the boxes a lot of people want out there. Show it off. It should be in shops. It should be the highlight to say Studio 2, Surface Pro, Surface Book 2. I mean, you make some great products. Show it off to the masses and let them decide. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Surface Studio 2. It's gonna be sad to let this go, but that's one of the downsides of being a reviewer. Sometimes you gotta say goodbye to these beautiful products and move on to other pastures. Anyway, if you own a Surface Studio 2 or a Surface Studio, let me know your thoughts. Do you like it? Do you love it? Does it fit your needs? If you're in the market for this, any questions you have on it, hit me up in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. We appreciate all your thoughts, your comments, your feedback, good, bad, or otherwise. Follow us on Facebook. Until the next one, take care.